Welcome to Kmd online information session. We're excited to have you as an audience. I hope you have an opportunity to watch our archived video to brief what Kmd is about. But just in case you didn't have a chance to do so, let me take a few minutes at the beginning to explain what is Kmd and what I think is uniqueness of Kmd. I also have two great guests who are very fresh to Kmd in different ways. So I would invite them to discuss their view of the uniqueness of Kmd as well. So Kmd, it was established in April 2008 when we Keio, celebrated 150th anniversary. So we are still a young baby within the Keio community. We are still the youngest, although we are hitting almost 12th, 13th year after 2008. When I was appointed to start preparing Kmd, I thought about what would be the role of Kmd under this long-standing brand of Keio. We have many graduate programs already at Keio, so I wanted to make sure we have something that's distinctly unique and different. The first thing I noticed is the global aspect of the university. So I wanted to make sure the new program will be under Keio, but still extremely international and global. I also thought creative society, the power of creativity will drive the society forward in the future. So I wanted to make a program that's centered around creativity. And right now, after 12 years, we are pretty much successful in branding ourselves as an institution for creativity and also innovation. We have diverse community ranging from diverse age group, different expertise or disciplines learned in undergrad, join us and form a very interesting different lenses of expertise coming together. Additionally, we have over 60% of students represented internationally, bringing different cultures, different everyday life activities, maybe even common sense. So diversity is the key of Kmd, and actually diversity is the most important ingredient to drive innovation forward. Kmd tries to be open, flexible, and playful. However, as a postgraduate studies of higher education, we also want to excel in academic excellence. So there's a balance of how much do we pursue the academic standing of work. Sometimes it's very theoretical, classroom-based with discipline, rigor, excellence. On the other hand, we don't want to stop to just contribute within the academia. Our initial goal is to create and be part of the creative society. So we want to go beyond academia into the real world society. There are a few ways to do this. One is to launch companies, startups, or commercialize our ideas as products or services. However, our society is not entirely made up of businesses. So some of the non-business aspect of society, which are equally important, includes cultural aspect such as arts, creative activities, which we always enjoy. And currently in Tokyo, we are hosting the 2020 one-year delayed Paralympics at the moment. So sports is also a very important part of our society. There are other aspects that we have in our society that needs to be tackled to improve ourselves, represented by, for example, SDGs. So to tackle SDGs problem, it may not always be business driven. So it's something that society needs to tackle beyond the lens of business. We call this social impact. We want to contribute to the real society and not only propose, but also create ones that we want to live in. Recently, we decided to move a little bit towards the future thinking, and I coined a method called dream-driven design. It's a method to envision the future that you desire, and then start working today towards your desirable future. KMD is a blend of practical training versus theoretical training. It's a balance between design, creativity, but also technological invention and innovation, blended with commercialization, businesses, and also societal design of policymaking, all in one roof. We think we are one big family of diversity, and it's very unique in that regard. For more details, please visit our website, and also please enjoy our conversation with my new faculties, Professor Donna Chan and Professor Yun-Sun Pai. So let me welcome Donna first. Donna joined us as of April this year. So it's been about 5-6 months of her experience at KMD. So let's hear Donna's self-introduction a bit so we can understand our professor, and also maybe moving on to Pai after that and do the same self-introduction from Pai. So Donna, please.
Great, thank you so much, Professor. Hi everyone, just to introduce myself a little bit. I'm actually, just call me by Donna. I'm actually been in the field brand and marketing for quite some time, as you can tell from all the wrinkles. But basically, I've been in this industry of communication for over about 16, 17 years. Very interestingly, I came across this opportunity with KMD, as Professor Inagaki-sensei said, in about April. I think there's in communication business side, I've spent over 15 years in the different multinational companies, building up different brands from international size to small sizes, creating new programs. With the technology changes, actually a lot of businesses had to cope with, from the traditional mass media way of doing things all the way to the digitalization as well as personalization. So there poses a lot of challenges for particularly large businesses nowadays. So I happen to experience some of them, and part of me wanting to join the faculty was also because I wanted to share my experience with everybody. I think this could be something of value for the future creative students to bring things forward as well. So it's a bit of a self-introduction there. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Let's move on to Pai.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Masa, for having me here. It's always a pleasure. And so a little bit about myself. I'm actually a Malaysian, which to my understanding is a little bit rare in KMD, which is always a cool thing. And so I actually was from KMD actually during my PhD from 2015 to 2018. So I have been in KMD for 3 years in the past. My original background was actually in computer-aided design and manufacturing engineering. So it's very sort of technical, sciencey side. But I was more interested in AR/VR interaction, which is why I decided to pursue my PhD in KMD, because it's a very diverse place and allows me to learn a lot of things. And then after doing my PhD here, I went to do my postdoc for 2 years in New Zealand. until early this year, actually, until I finally decided to come back here for this new position. So my research background is, I'm more on the academic focus, and my research background is, as mentioned earlier, AR, VR, MR, augmented virtual mixed reality, and more so in the human-computer interaction space. And also, so that was originally my interest, but then over the times during my PhD all the way until now, I've expanded a little bit more of my knowledge base to physiological sensing, as well as human behavior, perception change, and learning. So this is basically my research field. And right now I'm under the cybernetic being moonshot project in embodied media. So I worked with Minamizawa Sensei in KMD. He's running the embodied media real project and doing lots of fun research here.
Excellent. Welcome back. So as you can see from these two new faculties on board, we see a quite diverse mix. We have a well-balanced gender balance here, and also professionally industry-trained person to academic rigor trained person on board. And it's not only these two faculties, but the entire KMD faculties have either industry-driven experiences in the past, or academically driven, or sometimes both. I actually spend lots of time in the creative industries, working for Hollywood, Silicon Valley, and outside of the US as well. Now that I'm a dean and professor, I'm also working academically. So we, each one of us has not only one expertise and one limited interest, but I think all of us at KMD faculties are interested and have curiosities that's very diverse. And so this makes us very unique from the faculty side. And of course, if the faculties are uniquely positioned, the way we interact with students naturally makes it very unique. So two of you, you've been with us, well, Pai, you have longer period of time with us, but Donna, after 6 months, what is your take about the uniqueness of KMD that you find that's exciting?
I think there's quite a few points that is very exciting and also very attractive to my personal view. Very first of all, I think it's very rare for an educational place where it encourages innovation so much. You live and breathe creativity. There is literally, the acceptance, you can almost say that there isn't, to a certain degrees, there is a box, but you can almost say that there is a topic that you are not allowed to explore. I think this is a fertile ground for people who really wanted to try something different, who wanted to come up with new things, who thinks, I have this great idea and I just wanted to research it out and I just wanted to find out what's going on. I think part of us being faculty members is that we facilitate these kind of students to explore. We explore together, we discuss together, and we look for the new possibilities, particularly in an environment where everybody is facing challenges of, changing of the COVID, changing of the business settings and so on. I think this is the right moment for people who really wanted to break out of the box. Yeah, we want to try things out, we want to research different things, and this is actually a pretty good place. The second point I think I find it very unique at KMD is that there's this merge. One of the things I didn't mention in my background is that I'm actually also a certified counselor in Hong Kong. So what I do is I facilitate my communication skills not only in the commercial setting, but also in like a social good perspective. I think this is why I find KMD so unique. This is probably one of the place where I'm finding that you have social goods, you have social benefits forefront, wanting to merge together with this creative idea. As you said, Professor Nakake, it's not just for businesses. It's not just commercialization. That's one of the ways. But there's also this social settings that we can actually do something about it, or can actually facilitate things to change. And it doesn't separate, it should go hand in hand. I think these two are the major points where I find some of the projects are really, in KMDs are really thinking about social goods, and that moves me quite a bit as well. So,
thank you. So, thank you for the positive aspects of KMD. I'm sure you were a bit surprised in maybe somewhat negative way as well. Do you see any weakness or something that you struggled? That's because we are not traditional academic institution, or we're trying not to be at least. So there might be lots of expectations and things that you think how things should work, but at KMD it's not. What are some of the big surprises that you had over 6 months?
I think positive or negative is perspective. For those who are used to formality, used to guidelines, used to having a structural way of telling you, this is your assignment, this is what you should do, this is the timeline, this is when you hand in. Well, there isn't such a case in KMD. It's all up to you. What do you want to do? Come with your ideas, yeah? So I think it's more about us encouraging students to observe. So you can say that not having a formality to an extent that could be a downfall for some of the students, but this from a different perspective, that's also why this is such a fertile ground for trying out new things. Not to an extent where we want to box everything in, dictate which area you should study. On the other hand, tell us what you're interested in, tell us what you want to learn, and we facilitate that learning to happen. So to answer your questions, this is actually perspective. For those who are out there listening right now, who will be watching these videos later, I think one of the things that you'll find surprising is there isn't as much of the guideline as in terms of academia. Research-wise, a lot of times is based on the discussion, based on your critical thinking, and we facilitate that critical thinking to happen. And so you have to have a lot of drives and motivation in order to succeed and pull off these years. Okay.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so Pai, welcome back. It's not appropriate to ask you from your fresh eyes, but I think rather I would like to ask you your take of the uniqueness of KMD. Now that you have two different perspectives, one in previous years of a student on board, and now you're becoming sort of the faculty side of running the organization. So Pai, tell me what your impressions were when you were a student and how you see KMD as of now.
Yes, so I think there's definitely a unique perspective going on here. I will start with my first time joining KMD as a student, which I think can be quite interesting for prospective students as well. So like I said earlier, I came from a different country, obviously, but also from a different research background, different field, engineering field. And to come to a new country with not knowing any faces, it's definitely very challenging in more ways than one. Actually, firstly, it's probably the cultural shock, actually, but that's not a KMD thing. It's more like coming from another country. But I have to agree with you, Masa, is that the first thing that struck me was just simply how diverse it is. And it's many ways. So it's also the fields, the things that are being taught, the professors that we see around here, the interior decor of KMD, and just the overall vibe of KMD. Is, every universities that I've been to in the past, the ones that I've studied, the ones I've worked, and the ones that I've visited, they all aim and target diversity usually, but it is the most prominent here in KMD, I have to say, because there's really quite nothing like it. You have professors, they are like me, who are more on the academic field, HCI. There are those on business, there are those on education, there are those on culture, and and creativity, and that's really just amazing to me. And this really fosters the ability for a lot of the, actually not just students, but even the faculty, the people working here, everybody here just have a very unique way of looking at things, because we are being exposed to this big field where everyone is just able to offer their opinion from different directions, different aspects. And that's actually a very important thing to me, actually. So I'm still talking about my perspective when I was a student, actually. And that was for a PhD. So I would have to say that it's really quite tough. As Donna mentioned too, there was not a lot of handholding, which is to be expected, of course, from a graduate school, but much more so as a PhD student. So I'll have to admit that I was pretty much a hermit back then. I was just camping in my workspace, and I was just focusing on my work to finish my PhD within 3 years. But it was still a fun journey, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't be back here, of course. And then now looking at things as a faculty member, it's a very interesting perspective change, I would say. The first thing would be, I did find it amusing that, I knew I was a student, and then now that I'm a faculty and I join faculty meetings and I look at the discussions in faculty meetings, I was like, okay, so I suppose that's how I was discussed in the past, when I was being evaluated, and now I understand how it's like behind the scenes. I find that quite an interesting feeling, actually, in a good way, of course. And also, like I said, since my PhD, I was very much a hermit doing my own research. Now, as a faculty, I spend a lot of time supervising many students, and this opens up even more, actually, because I get to learn about many students' projects. I get to lay my fingers in different projects, guide them on how to finish it, how to complete their research, how to do proper research. So the diversification is even more prominent as a faculty member, and I really enjoy that aspect.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so let's shift gear a topic a bit. Now we're still struggling to overcome this terrible pandemic that's still concerning to many countries and regions. In particular, Japan is now getting the 5th biggest wave ever in Japan. And so from April 2020, almost a year and a half now, everything got online. From before COVID, everything was done in physical classroom. Although Kmd, from 2008 onwards, we said everything will be in physical classroom, but you don't have to be in the classroom as long as you can be connected into the classroom from somewhere. Especially, we have multiple physical satellite offices, one in Osaka, another one in Singapore, several places within Tokyo. So as long as you can have a secured high bandwidth connection, you're welcome to join, and we recognize students attending in the classroom, although it's not the same physical classroom. However, we're still very much designed around physicality, with additional arms to link to remote locations. Now, from April 2020, everything changed. Everyone changed on this planet, I think, to fully online experience with 0 or minimum physical classroom settings. There are lots of discussions how to move forward when the pandemic comes down for the post-pandemic society. Do we want to go back to this physical experience? It's easy. We are used to this. The other group says, well, maybe, but it damages our planet. So maybe it's a time to reset and redesign the society that's more sustainable and desirable. So at Kmd, we try to discuss both sides of the coin, but in terms of the Kmd learning and activities, I think the future of Kmd, and also I think Keio, university-wide discussion is also ongoing, is to look into opportunity space of how do we design hybrid that has not only fully online, but online and physical or in classroom experience somehow well blended in, so that we take both positive aspects of being online and being in the physical classroom. we don't know the answer yet, so we're still under exploration, and this is a very exciting question to answer, because we are designing a new future ourselves in reality. So this is what we are trying to do at the KMD classrooms are now redesigned and discussed how we can repurpose things rather than going back to how we were doing before. So Donna, as a branding and expert and longtime professional in the industry, industries oftentimes gets disrupted, not only by pandemic, but also with other natural disasters, economic downturn like the Lehman shock. And I hope you've experienced the industry shock as well. How do organizations try to overcome and learn from these damages?
Thank you for your question. I think that is one, if I may say, $1 million question for all the businesses out there. I don't know if everybody heard of this concept. So our business school professor came up with this idea of disruptive innovation. It is actually in nature for businesses to really just, decompose and then come up with something brand new. That's why there are so many small, medium businesses that is out there right now. It's because it's online, it's easy, it's possible. Ideas that you have, it is possible. So actually the bigger challenges that we're seeing right now is on the large to medium sizes. The bigger you are actually takes longer to change and it's harder to change. And so small actually can be agile. In a situation like this, which is very fast-paced changing and very globalized, the bigger you are, at times, it's actually harder. And so different sizes of businesses, different areas of businesses, you're seeing different challenges. One of the things that takes leader to do is to really trust your local offices, your local businesses, your local partners. That's one of the things that we're finding it really difficult in an online setting in particular. As you rightfully said, that people connect by physically being together. The bond that happens during the communication in physical versus online setting is very different. I'm pretty sure that if we do this info session online versus physical setting, it will be completely different as well. But at the same time, what can we do with what we have, right? This is another challenge. So there is this where we are right now, where we want to be in the future, and also where do you imagine this future be, right? So that's the bit where I think in KMD, a lot of students, we encourage them to do. Not so much about basing on what you have only, but also if you have a blank piece of paper, and this is where the whole disruptive innovation comes in, right? If you have a blank sheet of paper, where would you take this to? Yeah, so very exciting moment. There is no answer. This is the most exciting part. There's no one and only answer. It's actually a spectrum. So businesses are in different sizes, businesses are in different cultural settings, different locations. And so the more flexible businesses are nowadays, the more agile you're gonna be, the more likely you're gonna adapt and survive, or if not, strive for better in this setting. I'm not sure I've answered your question.
Yeah.
But that's my perspective.
Thank you. So Pai, from academic research environment, you've been in New Zealand until very recently, and New Zealand, from my understanding, is doing a great job tackling this pandemic situation. If you have one person infected, then the entire city gets locked down. It's sort of extreme, but I think, unfortunately, that's probably the safest and fastest way to cure the problem. In the research setting, sometimes you have to go into the laboratory to do your research, lots of experiments with all these equipment. And if you are banned to go on campus to do the research using equipment, that might damage the entire research plans. So Pai, from your experience, both in New Zealand and also now in Japan, what do you see about this current situation, how to overcome, and how do you see the future of research institutions?
Yes, so about New Zealand, you are right in the sense that with one person, then it's complete lockdown. So because of that, it's pretty much normal there, actually. People do not need to wear a mask and everyone's walking around. Classes are held physically. Research and experiments are done physically, and we can recruit participants easily. Well, that was until last week, if I'm not mistaken. There was one person with the Delta case last week in New Zealand, so the whole country is shut down. So I think until maybe 1 to 2 weeks. So right now it's in the lockdown actually. But yeah, actually this being able to shift to being remote in research is right now under constant discussions between a lot of researchers and academicians, and also in a lot of the academic conferences that we normally attend. So usually, one of the best appeals of being an academician is being able to visit different countries and meet other researchers, and also a little bit of tourism, isn't that? So that's always a great thing. But all this is gone, unfortunately. So then a lot of us, we need to think too, like how do we organize these conferences? How do we conduct user studies? How do we teach students remotely and effectively? So these three things are still a challenge today. There's no real answer. And one very important thing that was also mentioned by Donna is that we have to be adaptable. We have to adapt to this change somehow. So so looking at the conferences, first of all, everything is moved to a virtual platform. I think some of it are being hybrid as well. But for virtual platforms, then of course there's always Zoom as a default. But the thing about platforms like Zoom, in my opinion, is that in the end of the day, we just see a window of us like this, right? And we lose a lot of implicit information, which is the very important thing of our face-to-face meetings, in my opinion, because we do not just want to hear voices and see the faces. We want to see a person's motion, how they move. We want to see their backgrounds. It allows us to understand how a person speaks, and in the long run, it helps a lot with understanding, teaching, learning as well, comprehension. It helps a lot. So other platforms like for example, Mozilla Hubs, Verbella, I think these are also actually great alternatives because, I mean, it's also remote, but there's an existence of an avatar. And that has a big difference in my opinion, because you can at least see emotion of this person. Things feel a little bit more alive. So this is just an example of platforms that's being used for virtual conferences these days. But experiments though, that's the more tricky part, because we have to recruit participants for experiments, and especially to try a physical prototype to test out its usability, among other things, that's just not possible, unfortunately. So then in this case, some things needs to be simulated, and which obviously does not reflect the actual prototype itself, but this needs to be mentioned in the research, of course. And also some research, they need to be transformed into more survey-based, because then that's something that can be deployed remotely, which is not as exciting, of course. You don't get to play with cool toys, but that's just how it is being adaptable. And finally, of course, on the teaching and learning side, I see a lot of, I was fortunate enough to not require remote learning when I was a student, but the same can't be said for current students now, which is why I do pity them a little bit, because when professors and teachers teach them remotely, it's just more difficult to comprehend things, and especially when the learning itself requires something tangible, like say 3D printing, then it's just not possible in some ways, and then it'll be no different from reading a textbook, which would be, yeah, we'll need to figure this out. So there's no proper answer for that, but that, I suppose that will be the goal in the next few months or even years, how we proceed with this.
Yeah, so audience, please stay tuned. We will try to invent creative ideas of blending both online experience and in classroom in-person experience, somehow magically blended to have a more exciting classes that just simple in classroom experience cannot provide. So we try to go beyond what we've been doing that's much more exciting and sustainable and also resilient, I think. All right, great. So to me, this moment is really an opportunity space, although we are really frustrated, getting lots of stressful moments that we can't see each other, we can't really have a drink and eat. However, this is a rare moment that everyone is seriously trying to redesign the future. And when we have a normal everyday life, if we have a bold idea, why do we need to move to that kind of a radical idea? We're happy as it is, but at the moment, everyone is unhappy. So there are lots of motivations and probably easier to buy in your idea for the future. So I think I see this as an opportunity space. And from my point of view, there are 3 drivers of change. One is definitely the digital transformation that has been discussed pre-COVID, but I think now everything is relying on this digital connectivity, which is part of the digital transformation. Physical classroom, digitally transformed to online classes, everything is digital now. So the digital transformation will continue. So in PI, your research as a moonshot, which is supposed to be a really bold experimental project, what is the future goal of the moonshot project and how is that part of the societal digital transformation?
Right, so the Moonshot project is a giant umbrella project under the Japanese government. And we are just playing a small role in it, or at least I am just playing a small role in it. So perhaps I'll just offer my opinion on the scope of where my work lies within Moonshot. So the vision of Moonshot is to transform the society or look into the society of how Japan and in time globally, how they're going to evolve for the next 10, 20, 30 years. And specifically what we are looking at is about the development and the research and development on cybernetic avatars, or it could be virtual, it could be physical, but the idea is about how we can use avatars to supplement how we work, how we learn, how we interact with each other. And is the most fitting time to be looking into such a research direction, actually. I remember the very first time when I joined Kmd as a PhD student, and one of the first works that I saw here done in Kmd was the teleexistence robot, which basically is about how you can completely take control of a robot, where your hands move, the robot's hands move according to how your hands move, its head moves. You can see what the robot sees, you can feel what the robot feels. And that's just an example of a deployment of a physical avatar. So let's say if you are unable to, this is a vision of the future, so I can't say we can use that right now, but the prototype exists today. And imagine a future where you are able to sit at home, but you can really feel your presence and you have an avatar like a robot in Kmd here with your friends, and all of them having their own robots. And you can still physically interact with each other. You could technically feel their hands. You could work together and see from your own actual point of view, as opposed to separate windows like this. So that is very, very, very impactful. And this is just looking at the idea of having a robotic avatar. The idea of cybernetic being avatars extends widely to the point of also accessibility. How do we get everyone in society to be able to contribute equally? So it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if you are unable to walk. It doesn't matter if you are unable to perform daily tasks. With the help of avatars, you would still be able to be equal with everyone. And this is basically the grand vision of how the main Moonshot cybernetic being avatar project is going to be about. And I think it's very exciting, and it's a great time to be looking in such a research direction.
Yeah, it's perfect timing, actually. All right, so I think digital transformation, therefore, is really the core aspect of how the society moves forward. To me, other than digital transformation, there are equally important, or sometimes more important aspects of the drivers, which is the value set. I call this human transformation. Each one of us has values and thinking about what is desirable for you to purchase, and you make that purchasing decision, which is the value. Also, the society, the collective humans have also a values proposition in the society. And now because of this COVID, the way we spend money are shifting, and we're stopping and say, wait a moment, maybe in the future, my value is going to be more about this than this. And so the younger generation Z already are very sensitive to sustainability issues. So rather than buying new clothes, why don't we just buy secondhand, or trying to use the actual tangible products for a long period of time for sustainable planet. All these things are, to me, the values of provided by individuals and also society. Donna, you are an expert in this. And many of the KMD projects are not only designing, inventing technologies for technology's sake, but it's also always about humans or living beings. Sometimes it's about animals, sometimes it's plants. So I'm going to call it living species. So if the entire society is transforming to a new value set, or if every one of us, each one of us is having a different value than before, how would you design projects to deliver your idea to the society? So branding is definitely one aspect of the commercialization that communicates between the brand and the target audience. So Donna.
Yes, so that's why branding and consumer research is now the fascinating areas of development, because everybody is restructuring and refiguring it out. How are they about going forward? Because one of the things that, if you look at some of the latest paper coming out from 2021 or past in 2020 due to all the changes, a lot of scholars are researching what are the changes in consumer. As you rightfully said, there are a lot of values that is being readdressed, if not shift gears to reconsider. For example, individual goods versus collective goods, right? The concept of friends, due to physical settings or limitations, a lot of us now has a closer circle of friends, okay? So a lot of value, even down to F&B, for example, you may have, like, if you're in Italy, or if you enjoy Spain food, like tapas, that they share food, and that's part of the culture. That's a value that is the thing that ties families together. And so people around globe, scholars around globe, are now looking into the consumer changes, consumer behavior. And that has everything to do with redesigning how they're going to communicate, how the branding positioning should be redesigned as a corporate, how are we going forward. So a lot of the challenges is now coming down to how well does business pay attention to the culture, how well does the business pay attention to their consumer change. So to answer your questions, the very first thing, a lot of the time when we're looking at the research of students, we challenge them by asking, so why do you do this in the first place, right? The core center thought of how and why student does this will definitely affect how they design their position for the brand, how they carry the communication plan forward. All this is part of a design. So a lot of students may come across an idea of design must be, I don't know, they may come across like product design, fashion design, engineering design. Actually, there are a lot of abstract areas, for example, service design, as one of our faculty members says, as well as communication design, branding design. All this can be part of the concept of design. So really is as I said before, how you define design, how flexible you are in understanding these abstract concepts will actually bring challenges to students. And so starting with why you do the project, why you do the research, and then looking at who are you targeting? What are the values that speaks to them? Will definitely be one of the sort of cornerstone to build your communication design or branding design forward with. So, there you go.
Thank you. Yeah. Let me expand this a bit. So, in the field of design thinking, there's a component called need finding. We want to find out what consumers or customers want, or everyday life users want, and tries to meet that need. However, I think today that is still valid, but I think it's more important to have a demand creation, which we create a new value and propose. Because if the general user base are able to understand what they like or not like after they experience, we'll see it. But if you don't have it in front of you, it's very difficult to imagine what would it be like. So like things like microwave oven is a perfect example. It's a value proposition, and iPhone and all these recent new genre of gadgets are also demand creation of how new values are created with a future lifestyle proposition. And then if customers or consumers say, oh yeah, that's what exciting, I want to have that, I want to be part of that lifestyle, then business-wise you also succeed. Donna, what do you think is this balance between this need finding versus the demand creation or value?
So very interestingly, you brought up this point, because I was looking at some of the talks online, and then of course, for those of you boys out there that loves your cars, you would know what Ford said, right? If you ask consumer what they want, they will say they want faster horses, right? When in fact they wanted a car. So I think there is, as we were talking about just now, there is a certain value in terms of understanding your customers, because that helps you to understand how you talk to them. Okay, what are their needs are, what are their problems are. So for a marketer or a communicator, let's say, that is one of the core stones for us to know, how do we talk to them? Where do we talk to them? Like media-wise, how do we reach them? But on the other hand, that's why we ask about students in terms of what is it that they research on, because there is this future imagined, thinking that they have that is non-existent, right? Before iPhone came about, nobody knew that they need an iPhone, right? So the key here is really about also understanding what does the students envision. And so, as you rightfully said, the need creation also comes from understanding what was the pain point of the current situation, the current customers, the current targets. Not so much as in terms of only what they need, but it's more about understanding where the pain points are. A lot of time that gives cues. And that's one of the things that some of the faculty members talked about before as well. Reading cues, picking up cues, those observations of what's going on around you actually could give you hints about what future is going to be. Just depends on how far down the future that you're imagining. And, disruptive innovation, like I said before, was also one of the things as well, right? Really pushing everything aside of what we existingly have. Where can we see the future? And so there's a balance. It's never, so here's the thing, very interestingly, a lot of times scholars discuss will be one way or another. But I think in KMD, one of the things that we encourage us and we like to sort of facilitate students to think is, why do we have to choose? What about having both? Where is that range? Can we sit somewhere in between rather than a very extreme choice of one way or the other? So.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Yeah, so to me, KMD is really about designing values and of different kinds. So it might be from business lens, from technological lens, designing society, designing communication. So it's really about future of X, and the X is really about the value proposition, which comes from your really interesting, creative, and flexible mind that can make the society more attractive. All right, so we have 10 minutes left, and I see a few questions already posted. So let me read out and answer some of them, and I may ask two of you to help me out. So let me first begin. So it's in Japanese, but I can translate. So it's a question coming from the audience in China, or international student. The person is interested in joining KMD, but because of the COVID, are we stopping this international student on board? The answer is no. We are very actively seeking and welcoming students. Next month, we are getting lots of international students on board. So this is a sign that we are not stopping. We are actually accelerating the process. Of course, when it comes to the physical arrival into Japan, is out of our control from Keio University's standpoint. It's more about Japanese government policy. And during this biggest fifth wave right now ongoing, the government is reluctant to issue visas for people to flow into the country. But I'm sure if the fifth wave comes down, the government will restart the visa issuing, and therefore international students will be able to arrive to Japan. So KMD classes, we are still doing fully online. So as long as you can be connected online, you will have all these in-class activities, but also project activities done online, and all the communications, discussions like this kind of sessions done every day. So as long as you can be connected, you can be part of KMD community. And once the COVID comes down and there's an opportunity that we feel confident that it's safe enough, we, which we did in April, we will invite students and faculties to come to campus to have a physical meetup as much as we can. Of course, the COVID will never go away completely, so we need to be mindful, but at least we have several things, a checklist that to comply to make it safe. Question number 2. Let's see. After graduating from KMD, what is the degree called? Okay, so it's a master's in media design. It's not Master of Arts, it's Master of Media Design. It's not very common, but we think we try to be unique. All right, next. Hello, my question isn't directly related to the program, but to the mission criteria for scholarships. MEXT scholarship and DTF scholarships accept candidates from non-priority countries. I'm not sure about the DTF scholarship, but I do know a little bit about MEXT, which is Japanese government scholarship. If you are outside of Japan, each region or country has either a Japanese embassy or consulate, and please communicate with them. The process normally opens around April, and then goes through the screening process and make the final decision who gets the scholarship around November time. So please do talk to the embassy or consulate. Otherwise, you can also look for MEXT scholarship online, and it has probably a very detailed description of the process and eligibility and all the things that you need to know. I don't think there is a priority countries. I think we try to be equal. Let's see, another question about classes and real projects. We're using English or Japanese. Okay, so I run a project called Play, and under Play project, I have one Japanese student with probably quite a bit of international students from different backgrounds. So we use mostly English, but some even international students from April intake are not so confident in English, but rather speak Japanese. So we use dual language system, and if there's something that I need to translate or somebody can translate between English and Japanese. So we use dual language system. I'm sure Pi and your embodied media and Moonshot, you do the same?
Yes, it's very much hybrid. And Minamizawa Sensei speaks anyway fluent English and Japanese. Unfortunately, I don't speak Japanese. So if I were to say one weakness for me, that would be it. So I'm also a student in terms of learning the Japanese language here.
Yeah. For the courses offered, for the required courses for master's degree students, the fundamental courses are taught in both Japanese and English, but in April spring term, we use Japanese language. So the April batch are required to be fluent in Japanese for that reason. And likewise for the September intake, so next month, I said there's going to be a bunch of exciting new students on board. Their fundamental courses will be taught the same material in English this time. And Pi and Donna are part of the fundamental courses to teach as well. So welcome on board, both of you. So English and Japanese for courses, most of the courses are either Japanese or English. The advanced courses, majority of them are taught in 1 year in Japanese and then the following year in English, and toggles between the two languages. And Donna, you are in the preparation of teaching the first course in English while you're picking up Japanese, hopefully.
Doing what I can.
Okay, so let's see, what else do we have? Hi, professors. If I want to study in the business concentration, will it still be very design oriented? I'm very keen on the field of marketing and branding. Right, so at KMD, we don't really divide into disciplines because that will ruin all this idea of diversity and connections between disciplines and different values. So everything, even if you are interested in marketing, you will go through computer programming, learn about the basic of policies, and also about definitely different types of design. And for applicants and students who come from design background, likewise have to take in marketing and things that we want all students to know about. And beyond the fundamentals, students can have an elective of taking, oh, I don't want to touch technology, so avoid technology, but then you must do design and business and policy and other disciplines instead. So we demand students to have multiple perspectives, not only your interest in business for this particular example. So if you just want to focus on business and nothing else, then it's probably much wiser to apply to a business program like MBA. But the interesting part of KMD is it's like business school, but it's beyond business school. It's like design school, but beyond design school. It's like a technology engineering school, but it's beyond that. And that's the most exciting part. Anything to add, Pi, from your own experience as well?
Oh no, I completely agree. It's a mixed pot of everything, and that's why I love the most. Even when I say that I am specific in, or at least more focused in the HCI research, even something like HCI is a marriage of many things. You know, it's a little bit of psychology, a little bit of engineering, a little bit of cognitive science, and then when you combine all these things with, say, some business, some culture-based, some creative development, programming, then what you will create is something that's truly novel. And novelty is one of the key points in research. You want to do something that has not been explored in the past, and you want to do something that projects very much into the future. And you know, if it's really impactful, it could be something that can truly affect how we do things 5, 10, 20 years from now. So that's the most interesting part, in my opinion.
Great, thank you. So the final question that I have, we only have a minute left, is the person comes from art background and have no competent and computer related skills. We demand students, all the students, to take programming classes, but because programming requires different levels of skills, and we don't want to bore advanced level students who comes from computer science background. So for those computer scientists, they will take advanced programming, and then those of students who have no background in programming ever before or reluctant to even think about it will go through the very basic beginners programming, just to understand about the logic, how computers work and all that. Okay, so we're hitting 1 hour at this moment. The final, just a little bit of promotion from each one of you to the audience, starting with Donna.
From my side?
Donna, would you like to do a little bit of final promotion?
Yeah. So I think for me, this is definitely a great chance for students out there. Time, particularly now, where COVID is really a time for change, motivation for change. For those of you out there, this place actually gives you a lot of flexibility. And so if you are interested in being creative, are interested in being innovative, are interested in really doing something that's different. Yeah, as you said, even the title of the master that you get is going to be different. That challenges how flexible you are. So if you are, well, join the hub, join the team.
Thank you. Pai?
Yes, so as a student, your primary goal is to learn. And this means that you are greatly driven by self-motivation. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter as much what your background is and what you know now. What it matters more is what you want to know in the future, how much motivation you are in learning that. If you have the right motivation, that doesn't matter if you are MBA background. If you want to learn programming, you can learn programming. There's no boundaries in it. And KMD is probably the best place to do that because you have someone from everywhere. And if there's something you're unsure of, there's always someone to bother to ask about it. So that's pretty much my 2 cents.
Thanks, Pai. So my final words from myself would be to, if you think you fit really well in the traditional sense of established department or postgraduate programs, I think you are better off there. But if you think that you don't fit well, but you want to be more experimental, adventurous, or trying to do bigger things or be more futuristic, please consider us at KMD and join the club. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you for joining, and we hope that you rethink about your future plan of career and decide to apply to KMD and be part of the KMD family in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.